That's the thing I think with franchising, when somebody gets into a business is, and what I really try to talk to people about is like really understanding like what are your skills, and then just find something that matches your skills versus like getting into something that feels heavy. Like if you don't want to go knock on the doors of stuff, like don't do it. Find something else. There's a ton of options.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Small Business Mentor podcast, where we shine a light on the black holes of business growth with your host, Alan Pentz. In each episode, we explore the leaps and bounds entrepreneurs make as they push their businesses beyond the 1 million mark into the realm of professional sustainable growth. Stay with us as we navigate the journey from brute force to finesse.
Awesome. Today we have Brian Beers on the podcast. He is a franchising dynamo. He has built a 33-unit Midas auto repair franchise called Prenlin Automotive Group, and he's now broken into the painting franchise world with that one painter. He is also a fellow podcaster. Like pretty soon, we're all going to have our own podcast, I think. But check out Business with Beers, and he's also done a lot of advising on through that and through Twitter. You know, I see him all the time helping people understand the franchising business. So, Brian, awesome to have you here. Thanks for coming on today.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here and talk everything about the world of franchising.
So I had already started my company by the time you graduated from college. So I feel like I'm a total slacker today. So tell me how you got into this and why franchising.
Yeah. So, I mean, my family's been in the franchise business since 1976. My dad got started at a single location. He was 22 years old with, my granddad, and he got in it because his uncle was in Boston in the 60s with it. So it's been in our family forever.
Did they start with a Midas?
Yep, it was always Midas. And so then my dad from 76 to when I joined, ran it, they got it out up to 6 locations. And he was very much him and my uncle were partners and very much like a hands-on in the business every single day, operators. And did very well for many years. And then as time went on, 08, 09 had been rough, and they were kind of trying to get out of the business and thinking about selling, just closing them down, just getting out because they weren't making any money. And it was just, the business had changed so much over the years. And then I graduated college in 2010, and I'd always been entrepreneurial in nature. And I kind of figured, hey, instead of you guys selling this thing off, see if I can help. And so I get into it. I travel around the country. I meet other franchisees. I try to figure out what's working for other people that we can apply it to our business to get this thing going. And honestly, that's one of the best parts about owning a franchise is you're a business owner. You're a business owner that happens to operate a franchise. But we are business owners. We're not we wake up every day to grow our business just like you or anybody else does. We just live in this, we have certain rules we have to play by. And there's a varying spectrum of control and all these things we can talk about. But so anyway, I traveled around the country. I learned from other franchisees, other owners, what was working for them, came back, applied it, started having success, built the sales, built the cash flow. I did that for 6 years, and I wanted to make more money. But in the franchise business, in location-based businesses, certain locations can only make so much money. We can increase it, but we can't 30 times it, right? We could, we probably can get 15% or 20%, or maybe we can double it. And so, the only way I didn't own anything. The only way I can make more money personally is if I own some stores, right? And so my brother had joined, we went out, we got a bank loan, put 130 grand down, got a bank loan, and bought 2 existing locations in the Philly market. Ran it all as one company. I'm the president, but ownership, whatever, was different. And then I just compounded my money we made from those 2 stores. We put to buy the next one in 17, and then we opened up another one in 18 from scratch and bought another one in 18 and did it again in 19 and took a break in COVID. And then 21, we had an opportunity to buy a guy who had 7 locations in New Jersey, who was just like my dad, wanted to get out, tired, been in it forever, didn't have a succession plan. And so we struck a deal with him. Owner financed it, bought this whole northern New Jersey market in a single shot. And then we bought up all the other surrounding franchisees that were in the market. And then that kind of that gave us the cash flow we needed. We bought out my dad and uncle. And then we did another deal just like that. We bought out an entire market. And so that business today, we did $42 million in revenue in 2023. Our goal is over 50 million this year. In 24, we have 200 employees, and it's a great business. And then that's kind of the founding that then has helped us kind of spin off to kind of start to build this multi-facet enterprise of different franchises. But that's the original origin story.
That's cool. So you started when you kind of went in there with your dad and your uncle. Sounds like it was 15, 20 locations or something like that. And then
we had 6.
Oh, wow. So you really blew this out. So you took it from 6 to, what was it, 42?
Yeah, 33.
Oh, 33, right? 42 in revenue, yeah.
42 million, in revenue. Yep.
And that's just over 5 years since you started buying?
Something like that. 2016 was the first acquisition. And we doubled, like we had 12 locations in 21. In May of 21, we had 12. We had like the 6 and 6. And then we kind of went on the spree buying a bunch of big chunks. So we've acquired almost all the locations in the market that like people would be willing to sell us.
I kind of want to go deep on that aspect in a minute, but I wanted to kind of get a little bit more just on franchise model. So I saw here you said something around the zip code, like I don't have an MBA, I didn't invent anything. I'm just an ordinary person who's built an amazing business within a franchise. That's why franchising is the best business model in the world. Why is it this amazing business model?
At the end of the day, it comes into operations. Like to be successful, you got to be a good operator. You got to be able to follow the playbook. In my skill set, like someone shows me how to make money, like someone gives me their system, say, this is what you have to do this, this, and this, don't do this. I'm really good at that. I'm not good at like the guy to come up with all the ideas and like put the website. Like you go to my website's terrible. Hopefully it's better by the time this maybe goes live. But like I'm not good at the like, oh, I got to build this and then I got to like build this funnel and then I got to like create this other process, right? There's like all these things that have to do when building a business. And I'm trying to figure it out for my like online business of like whatever, franchise education, consulting, mastermind kind of stuff. But it's hard and it's not my skill. My skill is like, here's the funnel, train your guys in the field of this is the technical process and this is how you win. And so I'm really good at that. And so that's why I think it's amazing. If people, they don't have an MBA, they don't have like a ton of experience, they don't have to invent software, you don't have to like solve this new problem. You just need to go out and like, you got to find a good brand because I talk about franchising as like the top, I'm talking about the top 10% here. There's 3,000 franchises. There's a bunch that are really bad. There's a bunch that are really mediocre that you're gonna have to work your ass off to make it work. And then there's some that have really good systems. And a lot of it is about matching, like finding a brand and a business model that matches you and your goals and your skill sets. And so whole other topic, but just as like a disclosure, this is not like universal all franchises. There's a number of like asterisks throughout this, but conceptually, you focus 95% of your time on operations, on driving sales. The franchisor, for the most part, handles lead generation, marketing, business development in a lot of ways. Like on a national level, many times they are working on national relationships, national partnerships, looking at different CRMs and the tech stack and the lead funnels and like all this stuff, right? That like has to get done to run a business. That is like their responsibility. My responsibility is to go and like execute the play model as it stands today.
I love that because you know, like a lot of people I talk to, lead gen is like a huge issue.
Yeah, you gotta be an expert in it. Like you need to be in modern. And so like my favorite brands are the ones who are experts in that stuff. They've got 20-year-old kids working at this place, right? I'm 36. So I'm like, I guess I can say this, but like who are like up on all this stuff, right? Because it changes every day. Like this is TikTok. Now it's like on this. And then the messaging change, the look, the feel change, figuring out who's our avatar and like the different avatars and how we market to them. And like, it is a whole thing, right? And so like when you join a franchise, either the franchisor does it internally and they have a really good marketing team or they outsource it. They go out and they try to find the best agency and that agency is doing all this stuff. But like, you shouldn't be thinking about it. You should like keep an eye on your numbers and making sure it's working. If it's not working, you're like coaching them or making sure your money's being spent well. But it's one less thing you have to worry about. So then you can be hyper focused on driving sales and customer service operations, all that stuff.
I love this idea because, like I don't know if you know EOS.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
So this is really for the implementer, integrator, operator, not for this visionary type who's going to try to redefine some business category or something.
100%. That's it. And like my vision, so like I'm the visionary, right? You probably couldn't guess that, but like, so my vision is like, well, then how do I create, if I can get good at operating it, how can I create this like network or this holding company that says, hey, I've got multiple brands that have synergies. We have centralized office, we have centralized, shared services. And then how do I find good operators? How do I find good brands? I can bring the capital, I can raise the capital, right? Like I can build this entire company within the ecosystem of a franchise. That's my vision on it, right? It's not like, how do I do a better paint job or how do I fix the cars better? Like, I don't care about that.
So one of the things that sounds like is a key here is financing and acquisitions kind of almost become easier. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So like franchisees want to sell to other franchisees by default. Because you think about it, right? Like you've got this third party involved, which is the franchisor. So like, I want to go sell my business. I say, hey, I'm going to go sell it to my neighbor who's not a franchisee. The franchisor has to approve that person. They have to have good credit. They have to go through a background check. They got to go through like all these different things because they want to protect the brand, right? And so it adds this extra layer of complexity. Sometimes these businesses, listen, not everybody who buys a franchise, it works out for. Sometimes, we've bought in locations that are losing money. And to an outsider, they're going to be like, this is crazy. They would like dig into it. They'd like build all these financial models. It'd be super painful for the seller. Me, I don't ask for tax returns. Sometimes I'll ask for a P&L. I've bought in locations without a P&L. I've bought in multiple locations without even stepping foot inside of them because I know the business so well, because I've got 30 of them. I know what it's going to need and I know what my expenses are going to be. I have a pretty good idea of what I think the sales can be. I care about the rent. I care about the lease. I care about like the employee. Like there's some things I care about, but it's so much easier to sell to me because I live and breathe the business every day. So it's just an easier transaction. It's a quicker transaction.
And seller financing, I assume, is a lot easier because they know you know how to run it.
And then I get seller finance. Yeah. I mean, we've gone to the bank, we've paid cash, but a lot of times, this bigger deal, guys want to get it done in 30 days or whatever. Sometimes speed matters and we can do a seller finance deal. And I bought in good locations doing that. I bought in bad locations doing that. And I'm more reliable to them than their alternatives, right? They know I'm a top performer. They know I'm a good person. It's not some rando, right? It's someone like, you see at the meetings, like, obviously I've got an elevated presence on LinkedIn and Twitter and all this stuff, but anybody can do that. Like you get in a franchise, you can be part of the community, you can get on the boards, you can like speak at the conventions, participate in the workshops, and like you can become known and then you can be trusted. And then you get your message out there that says, hey, I'm looking to buy locations. It doesn't even have to be your neighbor. Like I've gotten opportunities in St. Louis and Jacksonville and Arizona and all these places over the years. We didn't pursue them for whatever reason, but like the opportunities are out there. And so anyway, it's an amazing spot to be able to grow through acquisition or through development to say, hey, I'm going to open up new locations. If it's territory based, you're buying additional territories as long as they aren't owned by somebody else. You can convert, you have the opportunity at least in the Midas business, I can buy a competitor and convert it over to a Midas, right? So there's like lots of different ways that just like a business, just like you would, right? Or whoever's out there, it's the same thing. We just have to live and play by, some rules.
Well, I run a government contracting company, so I know how to live and play by rules. So that's my baby business. Sometimes I know that, they conflict with each other. But also I would assume like banking relationships to get loans, if they have a cookie cutter kind of model, they're going to be more comfortable lending, right?
Yep. There are some banks that are very comfortable with the brand, especially for a start. Like you're starting a new franchise, you need 300 or 500,000, whatever it is. A lot of times the more popular brands will already have pre-existing relationships. Bankers are comfortable with the model and the numbers and like they've got a good track record. So financing just can be a little bit easier. And then obviously once you're already operating, you might be working with your local community bank and all that stuff.
I hadn't really thought through the M&A implications. Like it is something like if you get in, you learn how to operate, then scaling becomes sort of like a little bit, I'm sure it's not easy, but it's a little bit more stepwise. There's a process there. Like you don't have to go do all the things you hear about people doing to buy businesses out there, right?
No, it's crazy. And Midas is legacy business. So like it's a little bit, and there's older owners that want to get out and like, it's a little bit more unique, but even, we're in the new painting business, that one painter, and even a business like that, there are people who want to sell. Not everybody gets into it. It works out. Life changes, situations change. So like, no matter what it is, whether it's a new brand or an old brand, there are opportunities to grow through acquisition as well as development.
So obviously you had extensive experience with this big, kind of old legacy brand. You knew it and you grew it, obviously, but then you decided to move from Midas to different field painting. So I think it'd be really interesting to hear how you did your due diligence on going to a new franchise with somebody with that much experience. You must have done very good due diligence.
I've had my podcast for 2 years. I've interviewed tons of franchisors. I've got tons of friends in different businesses. I actually bought and got out of 2 other franchises over the last 5 years, whatever it's been. Both of them failures, I'd say. I lost money on them. And so part of it was like looking at why those didn't work out, looking at why are we successful in the Midas business, and then to say, hey, what's something that can avoid the stuff that didn't work and would capitalize on the skills we have. So I think it's really important for anybody who says, hey, I want to get into a new business, franchise or not. It's kind of having a checklist of like, what are the attributes that you're looking for in a business? So I'm agnostic to like, I don't even care about paint. I don't care about cars. Like I'm totally agnostic to the business. It just has to make sense to me, right? I have to believe in it, but don't care about cars, whatever. So my checklist, I wanted something that was asset light. So Midas is a very asset heavy business. I have triple net leases. I'm responsible for every single thing. We spend $200,000, $300,000 on just replacing roofs last year. And so I wanted something that I thought was like super asset light. So this business, you just got guys in trucks driving around. We don't own paint. We don't own brushes. There's no warehouse space. It uses a subcontractor model, which is very common in the paint business. So I wanted something very asset light. I wanted something that I could own all of Philly, right? I'm like a go big or go home. I'm not going to buy one. I want a huge territory. There are other brands I really like, but best parts of Philly or all of Philly was already sold because we were going to operate it here versus maybe another market I might be willing to have somebody else. So I wanted asset light. I wanted something in Philly. I wanted something that was mass market B2C. I wanted something that had wide appeal. People are already spending money on this service and highly fragmented, right? Where there's lots and lots of competition. Because if you think about automotive, it's the same thing, right? B2C, tons and tons of competitors. You grab down the street, there's tons of auto shops, highly fragmented. That means it's very easy to gain market share if you can be a good performer, be a good operator. Versus some of the other businesses I was in that I failed at were B2B, which are relationship based, primarily by the owner normally. And they were very niche, which means the market share was very small. And both of them, there's very few competitors, but they were 800-pound gorillas. So we were going into this B2B relationships that highly relationship driven with some massive competitors. And I wasn't the one driving the sales. I had salespeople who just weren't as good as, or never going to be as good as the owner. And so did not do well in those. So I said, hey, if I'm going to drive this thing, I need something that's like automotive. So paint, huge market, tons of competitors, great. The biggest franchise competitor, CertaPro, has 4% of the market. That's their stat. So think about that, right? It's huge. And so that for me, that fits my personality, that we can go out, we can do marketing, we can get in front of eyeballs. We have a process to convert sales. We have really good salespeople who are very well trained. And then we hire good painters, we treat them well, whatever. At the end of the day, the end product is good as well. And then I wanted a modern franchise company. I wanted something who I thought was on the cutting edge of the digital marketing. All these guys are they're using the brand money to hire influencers and to do influencer marketing. Nobody else in paint, let alone home services, is, I don't know how much they're paying, but to Instagram and YouTube and all these interior design influencers to talk about paint. Nobody else is doing that cutting edge. That's how we get in front of the companies. That's how we break all the noise. So I wanted a company that I thought was on the cutting edge of that because I'm terrible at all that stuff, right? And I know that's what it takes to be successful. In a highly fragmented mass market, you have to be really good at marketing. Those are the qualities that I was looking for. And then the rest I could figure out, obviously, from the franchise, that's from a business model perspective. From a franchisor perspective, there's happy franchisees that are thriving, that are buying more territories. There's unit economics where it just makes sense in terms of how much money I think I can make versus what does it cost me to get in? What's my downside? What's my upside? Just trying to understand from a financial standpoint, the territory, I don't know, there's all the things in the franchise itself. And I view that kind of separately. First was let me find, this is the type of, this is my buy box, which is those things I went over. Once I find something, then it's all right, now let's vet the franchisor through my metrics to make sure they would be a good partner for me.
So in this model, if you're using subs and they've got the paint and all that kind of stuff, I mean, it's essentially what the franchisor are providing is digital marketing.
Digital marketing. So we officially launched on Monday. We sold an $11,000 job on Tuesday. And the workflow was the guy clicked on a paid ad or, found us on, it was some sort of paid search. He found it. Tuesday morning, he put his information, the call center got in contact with him. He booked him an appointment for Tuesday afternoon, same day, goes there and sells the job. And then says, hey, we can get this thing started I think we're starting on Sunday.
But then you have a sub fulfill it.
Yep, we already got the sub, but he was so impressed at the speed. From the time he clicked the thing to the reaching out from in Austin, the call center, to my guy showing up, to my guy, my guy's super friendly and he's a great sales guy, builds a relationship. And then we have 5 painters on deck ready to do work right now. And boom, we can get started on Monday. That loop was so quick versus it's possible he clicked on 5 other people and he's still waiting for a call to even schedule an appointment. And we've already got the job sold and scheduled. So speed in any of these businesses, automotive is the same thing. Our motto, we say, is say yes and then figure it out. Say yes to the customer. Yes, we can do that. And then you figure out how you're going to get it done. Versus we have this problem, or guys, will at least in the auto, say, the phone rings and we're looking at the bays, we're looking at the cars in the bay, and then we're telling people no, I don't know if we can get that brake job in, or I don't know if we can get the exhaust. And it's 2:00, and then 4:00 comes around and the bays are empty. And it's man, we could have taken that car. They live in the moment. They have trouble seeing above it. So one of the things we really focus on is training your people to say yes. And then It's amazing. People still figure out a way to get it all done. They still leave at 5 o'clock. If the can't, like the customer's okay to waiting the next day, like they understand the cars can't be fixed overnight. So anyhow, that's kind of like a lot of my theories and what we talk about.
I was interviewing Nick Haluski last week, and he and his partner Chris, they bought and started some home services businesses. And basically, what they do is they scrape all the company names from an area, and then they have offshore people call, and they rank how fast they answer and quote. And then based on who's the slowest, they go into that market and try to compete with them. So I love the model, first of all, because you talk about this. I mean, this is super asset light. So basically, I think this is sort of the modern way, right? It's like, it's all about the lead gen and then the quick execution, and then you can kind of sub everything out. And so it's like super simple, right?
And there's other models that I really like that are a little bit more asset heavy. There's a power washing business, Rolling Suds. I'm close with the founders. I've helped a bunch of people get into it. And that one, there is a warehouse. They have power washing equipment, super high, the highest level stuff you can buy. But that business is more B2B. They're working with government. Like franchisee got like the city of New Orleans. It's a 6-figure contract to wash every single public building because the Super Bowl is coming and they want to clean up the city, right? So they need somebody to like wash the library and power wash all the steps. Someone needs to go and deal with the government. Like you'd be great at this, right? To get a $100,000 contract to wash a bunch of stuff, right? The corporate locations go in and wash in has a deal with the Philadelphia airport to like wash all the concrete around Philadelphia airport. In that business, it's still pretty asset light in terms of like they have a truck. But like once you buy it, there's not much more after that. But the business model is really this B2B relationship, honing it in, right?
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting how you said like, and obviously kind of know this, but it hadn't been drawn out as much that B2B, yes, contracts are probably bigger, but it's a big relationship business. And so you own a bunch of franchises all over the place. So you don't want to be like sales guy. And it's very difficult and small unit that, like I always say, the owner of a business until it hits 5 million, probably even more, is going to be the chief salesperson because you can't hire someone that good.
Especially in a B2B. I bet you did all the sales.
Oh yeah. Well, till 10. Then I could hire like a real salesperson who was qualified. But I tell like small business owners, they're like at $1 million. They're like, hey, I want to hire a sales guy. I'm like, yeah, that guy makes $1 million and he works at Oracle, right? Who's going to be really good for you. So like, he's not going to work for you. So I love that distinction. It makes a lot of sense for people.
Yeah. And that's the thing I think with franchising and somebody gets into a business and what I really try to talk to people about is like really understanding like what are your skills and then just find something that matches your skills versus like getting into something that like feels like heavy. Like if you don't want to go knock on the doors of stuff, like don't do it. Like find something else. Like there's a ton of options.
Yeah. You have this opportunity to pick from all these business models.
Yeah, there's 3,000 different business models. Like why force yourself into something that makes you super uncomfortable versus finding something that's like already a natural fit for you?
But it does sound like these B2B things are going to be a little bit less scalable because the owner can't scale himself or herself.
Correct. Until like it's a similar thing though. You build it up enough, you do a multi-million, like you then hire the sales guys, or you've got the guy who like, maybe you've got a guy working all the residential stuff or the small business contracts. And you as the owner are still doing the Philly airport and you're still doing the big 6-figure deals as you start to kind of peel yourself away and elevate your people. And I mean, it's possible. It's just a matter of how long it takes.
So, obviously you're seeing, I'm sure you got people coming to you, like this whole search movement of people leaving business schools and whatever now. So do you think franchising is a good like launching off point for those people?
For the right people, we've helped a ton of people. Like I've got this business, we help people find franchises, we educate them on it, all the stuff I'm talking to you about, and then try to match it. And so we help a ton of people and their story is pretty common. It says, I've been looking for a business to buy for the last year. And like, I am tired of sitting on the sidelines and like, I want to get in the game. And I start with the proven playbook. I start with like this community. I can start with like the marketing and I can just go out and just start building it up. And so, yeah, we're seeing a ton of that. Most of the people we help are making 300 grand in tech is another common one too. They work at Google, they work at Facebook, they work at SaaS companies, and they're in enterprise level sales or management. And some of them travel a ton. They're traveling all around the country. They all have young kids that are 2 years old or whatever. Sometimes the wife works and makes good income too. And they know they can do more and they want a path of how do I make 700? How do I make 1 million? How do I make more? And franchising can provide that if you can get in the right brand. And then, obviously you as a business owner can hire good people. You can hold them accountable. You can set the vision. You can, drive it just like anything else. It's just, you don't have to start from zero. You can start from second base.
But you're saying it's really the 10% of the brands are going to be worthwhile.
Yeah. There's a ton of crap out there.
So how do people wade through it?
Yeah, so there's a couple things we look for. I have a whole like due diligence checklist, and this whole thing I give away for free for anybody that wants it. The first thing we talk about is number one, we look at the leadership, and I want to see. There's two sides to the coin. One is industry knowledge. So somebody they've been in the business forever, they've got a ton of experience. Like when you buy a franchise, you want decades of their learnings and mistakes and systems and retweaks. Like you're buying all that. And so I want to see somebody who's been in this thing for a while. If they just created the franchise like 6 months ago, and it's like, I don't know how much like learned knowledge there is there and mistakes versus somebody who's been doing it for 10 years and they just turned it into a franchise, right? But they've learned a bunch of stuff along the way. So I look for that industry knowledge. Then I look for there's another half of this that's franchising knowledge and franchising experience. Because running a franchise is really, it's a training company. Like their goal is to train people what to do. It doesn't matter what the widget is. The training platform's the same. So they should have really good training. They should have really good support in terms of like ongoing stuff. Like once you get initially trained, what's the ongoing look like? They should have that. If it's B2C, obviously they need to have that marketing built out. They need to have good funnels. They need to have they need to be investing in their people. The fast growing brand should be support people internally at a faster rate than what they're growing. Because sometimes these emerging brands where they have like 5 employees and it's like they've sold like 200 units and it's like, how the hell are you going to support all these people? There's other ones, they're hiring new people every week or every month. Or the brand I'm part of, it's called, what's that one, Painter? The parent company is called Resi Brands. Resi Brands hired 30 people in January and they're investing back in the business because they know that's the only way they can support franchisees. Successful franchisees then mean selling more franchises, right? And like franchisees buying more and opening up more brands and all that stuff. So the leadership in these new brands is so critical. So I have a whole thing on that of what to look for. But basically, you want somebody with industry knowledge and franchising knowledge and experience. The next thing, the FDD is a gold mine of stuff. So the FDD stands for Franchise Disclosure Document. It's just like it's a 240-page document that you get when you start going through the process. In that, it'll talk about the founders. So you can look at the founders. You can research them online. What are their backgrounds? If they have any bankruptcy issues, like the founders have bankruptcy issues, it would talk about that. Any lawsuits. So some brands will have, if you see lawsuits where the franchisor is suing franchisees, run away for the most part. You can read what the lawsuit's about and stuff, and some of them are okay, but there's some that it's got 50 pages of lawsuits listed. It's not a good sign. You can see the fees, some brands try to fee you to death, and nickel and dime you. Other brands don't. So I look at that. Talking to other franchisees is the other big one. It's called validation. I've got a list, 20 plus questions to ask people. And basically, you want to find out how are they doing? How is everything going and compared to what your expectation was? Sometimes these brands have a really good sales process and they sell you the world and then they get in and it's not anything like what they packaged, right? And so franchisees will tell you that. They can tell you anything, what their sales are, how much money they're making, if they're willing to tell you what the support what the marketing's like, try to understand a day in the life, what are their challenges. You're going to deal with those same challenges probably.
You just find the locations and call and ask to talk to the owner or something?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, sometimes a brand will introduce you to somebody. It's important to talk to people who run it like you're going to run it. I'm running the CEO model for the painting company. So I hired a regional director. The regional director is overseeing my multiple sales guys, right? I'm not in the day-to-day. There are other people who run the same business and they are the owner, they are the salesperson. So if they suck at selling, they're not going to do well. If my sales guy sucks at selling, I'm just going to find a new sales guy. But as the owner, hard to do that, right? So a lot of it's just making sure you talk to people who run it like you're going to run it, because there is a variance in it. There can be. And there are a whole bunch of questions to ask in terms of how people feel supported. Those are the big ones that I look at is, FDD, looking at the leadership and talking to other franchisees. And the franchisees will say anything. They don't care. They got no skin in the game. If they're not happy, they will sure tell you. And not everybody's happy. It's not always sunshine and rainbows, but at the end of the day, it's what are your plans? Do you regret doing this? And sometimes they say, yeah, this was the worst decision I've ever made. That's a huge red flag that you got to dig into. And other times they say, no, this is great. I'm looking to buy, more territories.
Well, you want to see that. Did they disclose that? Additional territories developed or bought by existing franchises?
No, not really.
You just have to kind of probe for that.
You have to dig into it, yeah.
I'd assume another characteristic is my sense is, on very limited knowledge of this, is you're going to make 100 to 300K kind of range net out of a location, depending on what kind of business. I mean, I'm sure it ranges all over the place. So that can be a good lifestyle for a person, but it's not. It's just replacing the income at Google. So you probably want something that can grow the multiple locations, right? So you have that growth path you could see ahead of you.
I think the growth strategy is a huge part of like when you get into it, you should have your growth strategy laid out to say, hey, I want to get into, so maybe I buy 5, but I start with 1, right? And I get that thing going, and then I use the money I make to like launch the second location, right? And then I snowball it. That's one strategy. Some people, if they're, better capitalized and a little bit more, okay with risks like me, I'm launching 3 at once. And then I'm going to launch another 3 as soon as I get these things to break even, basically. And then I'll launch another 3 and then the other 3. And I'm going to like snowball it from there. But sometimes like what if you get into, the problem is you only buy 1. So say someone bought 1 in Philly or whatever, and then I come in and I'm this big player and I buy everything around you. Now you're landlocked. You can't I'm not going to sell you any of my locations unless I want to like totally get out, but I'm probably going to sell it to somebody bigger. And so it kind of creates this sense of, like there is a scarcity mindset when you go into this, that if it goes really well, like other people are going to come in. And so you kind of have to balance how much do you do initially. And so that's a big part of it. If it's a physical base, it's the same thing of like, what are the open pockets that I can put, Midas shops in or whatever. And if you're going up against somebody like me in the Philly market and I own all of them, like, guess what? If a location comes over, like I've got brokers and like we know we can get deals done, and like I'm going to try to do my best to swoop in and grab that. And so it's going to be much harder for solo people to try to like grow within a market if there's another big player in there. And so like you kind of want to know that going in, right?
What do you think about, so like an existing business owner coming in? I would assume, if you're already operating a business like you were, and then going and like, I assume in this case, like if I were going to go do this, I'd probably want to buy an existing operation or something like that. But it's probably pretty tough, right? So first of all, the best franchises are going to get bought by other franchisees, right? So it kind of feels like, in one way, that would be a great thing for a business owner to do, but they're probably not going to be the top person to buy that place. And then starting over with a new brand, it feels like you're going to have to be super deep in the operations to kind of get it off the ground. What's your sense?
Yeah, so I'm getting it off the ground. I'll know in 2 months, 3 months, how are we on our plan or not. If I can hit my goals, like I'm going to be pretty happy with that. So franchisees want to sell to other franchisees, right? And we talked about that. But you only need 1 to become a franchisee. One of the strategies that people implement is say, hey, let me buy 1. I'll get my feet wet. I put $100,000 into this thing, super low risk. I learn it. If I like it, I've got a bunch of capital. I can buy out a bunch more, or I can buy out existing ones. Or, hey, listen, this thing's not what I thought it was. I'm going to get out, or like whatever. It's a lot lower risk. That's one way that does work for people. I'm talking to a guy now, or we're talking to him. He's got it's like a sunroom, 4 seasons type of construction business, right? They build decks and patios or whatever. And like he was looking at the same painting company as me because he saw the similarities. Hey, it's like home services, it's sales driven, it's people in the trades. Like for him, it felt pretty good. He had to get over, or has to get over the royalties and like not having a hand in the marketing, but like likes it from it, like the core business side of it, really likes the idea of it and thinks it fits in kind of with what he's already doing. And for him, like he's looking at a market, a little bit more of a rural market that's outside of a major metro. And so it is available, and he thinks internally he has some people who could run it, who's already been with him for a while. So sometimes is there a synergy with your existing business? Do you think it would fit? Does it make sense?
I had a buddy who opened a bunch of restaurants and stuff, and I was like, what are you doing? Just, if you're willing to like work around food like that and you're comfortable with that kind of labor, go get a franchise. It just seems it takes out all this risk.
Yeah. And then you can open up, like those food guys, like once they get it, people love food or they hate food, but the guys who love it, they can own multiple brands. They can own 5 different brands in the same city that are all in the same strip center. So somebody's hungry and they could capture it either way, right? Which is like so awesome.
I guess they have a lot of back end synergy, right, between those brands, because basically the same kind of labor, payroll.
Same process of buying food, same like, versus like an auto, we can't do that. Like I can't own a tire shop. I can't own a quick lube shop. Like I've got non-competes, and the food business doesn't have that. Most home services don't have that either.
You can't own across auto services?
Most of the auto franchises have non-competes.
Oh, interesting.
I can't own a Meineke for sure. And I can maybe try to buy a Valvoline or something, but I would be against my franchise agreement. So I'm not going to do that.
Oh, interesting. So like, is that specific to auto, or is it just depend on the industry?
It's usually my paint has a non-compete against other paint, but the auto is so broad that that's kind of why we do sell tires, but it's like 10% of our business. If I wanted to get into like a Big O tire, well, Big O's a sister brand. I can technically buy a Big O, but another tire, R&R tires, like out west, couldn't do it. even though that model is 100% tires because we sell 10%.
I'd never known about that. But yeah, it does seem to me like the typical person who's going to start like a small retail-y kind of business might be just better off served going into franchising because like you just don't have to deal with the marketing. Like, look, if you're going to go start some tech company and blah, 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 that makes sense. But yeah, this seems like a much safer, smarter path for people if they can do the due diligence. So talk a little bit about is your model just like an hourly consulting model?
No, we work like a buy-side real estate agent. So like no cost to the person looking to buy. The seller, in this case, the franchisor, pays us a referral fee if someone goes through and purchases. So we have 700 brands that are kind of in our portfolio with the network that we're part of. And our goal is to find something that somebody loves and they're ready to commit money and time and effort into going it. And so we provide people with a whole bunch of those free resources to give them confidence. Because that's the main thing. You're looking at something, it's like, how do I know if this is good or not? And I can't tell you if it's good or not, but I can give you a whole bunch of resources to see if you believe it fits you, right?
So is it big enough now that like you don't even know what all the 10% are, that there are a bunch out there that you don't know about? Or is it like basically know all of them?
No. I kind of like the way I've done it. It's like I've looked at a bunch. I've kind of narrowed it down to like, I don't know, the 50 or so that I like, I like, and then I've got like 10 that I like love.
So what are the categories that you think are the best?
I mean, I'm big into home services. I'm big into the trades, right? Just because I'm comfortable with it, right? Trades, home services. But in home services, we're talking roofing, siding, gutters, windows, plumbing, drain cleaning, electrical, paint, windows, blinds, flooring, cabinets, like every single niche, like there is something to do. Mosquito, lawn care, the list goes on, right? We do a lot in that space just because I'm comfortable with it. The models are very similar. Like roofing is the same exact model as paint. Marketing, call center, 1099 labor. There's an insurance component sometimes, but very similar model. So it's like if you can figure out to do one, doing the others, not that much different. Fencing, same exact thing. Marketing, call center, 1099 subs, sales reps in between with very little. Some of them do no asset, no warehouse either. It's like all direct ship stuff. Once you start to kind of learn the business models, a lot of them are really, really similar in the way they structure them. So we do a lot in that. I do a little bit in senior care, right? There's a huge growing population of seniors that need help. Like I'm a partner in one, so I know that business pretty well. Just starting to get into like personal care, like different types of salons.
You're going to do the blowout kind of places? I always thought that sounded like the best business.
There's a spray tan one that's really interesting. Very high margin, very great labor model that is high tip based. So that the W-2 wages are low. It's recurring revenue, all that stuff. So those are mainly what we focus on and I talk about just because I'm comfortable with it.
What else do you see that people are like and are successful at? So you always say the food stuff. You have the home services.
Yeah, there's food. There's like whole thing of wellness, red lights and cold plunges and IV drips. And, then there's like TRT and like weight loss and like cryo. Like there's like all this stuff like that is an emerging space. It's unclear how long it's going to last. They're brand new business models. I think they're great. Like we're a customer of one of those places. My wife goes, we love it. She has a membership. I'm the guy that like mass market, tried and true. I don't know how long people are going to be into like red lights and saunas and crypto or cryo and all this stuff. People can make a lot of money with that. That's just not me and something that I'm comfortable with. So, hey, if someone wants to look at it, I can show them a couple brands, but it's not like, I think it's an awesome model. There's other ones that just, we know like house cleaning is like a really tough business. Anything to do with pet grooming is a tough business just because the labor component is so unique. So anyhow, there's some that we know that just are tough.
Yeah, because there's some of these services are like I think of like a nail salon. Like there are just so many nail salons around. Like does the brand and the marketing help that much? Or cleaning, to your point?
Even if they have trouble getting nail techs. Labor's the hardest thing. It's like, is there a good labor model? If there's a good labor model, that has a unique positioning, I think that's a good opportunity. If it's like people really struggle with it, automotive is not easy. Like we struggle to find good techs. And our business relies on having good techs, which makes it more difficult than even an oil change or tire, which is a lower scale, bigger pool, more trainable, is honestly a better model.
Totally hear that. I mean, we're at 3.7% unemployment. I don't think it's getting better anytime soon. So let's talk about like going forward. Where do you see the industry going? The franchise. I was going to ask you, like, have you ever thought about developing your own, becoming the franchise?
Yeah, I've thought about it, but then I'm like, hey, what is my skill? And like, I really like this. I like talking about it. I like the theories. I like getting people in. Do I want to like deal with franchisees all day and like be the guy? You're like now the business owner who has to develop all the new ideas and has to put all the systems in place and like, don't know if that's me versus I'm like, show me what to do and I'll go make money. Or in this case, it's let me show people how to like think about this in a new way so that they can go make money. I think the industry is going to only get bigger. I think that these brands that are on the cutting edge that are run by millennials overtake some of these older brands that are run like the 1990s or 2000s.
And where do you see that show up most? Is it mostly in the marketing, the digital marketing, or?
Yeah, it's the marketing, and then it's all then the internal systems like the onboarding. That's like a highly driven, automated ClickUp based. Everything is digital manual. That's Loom videos, and versus other ones, it's like a PDF guide that like you have to print this, or it's literally printed, and then they mail it to you. Like that's what we're talking about here. So none of this stuff is groundbreaking by any means.
They fax it to you?
Yeah, they fax it. Yeah. None of this is groundbreaking, right? It's not like we're AI driven like stuff. And then I think, the more people the more higher quality, really smart people that get into franchising, they're going to help the industry, right? Because they're going to have success. They're going to buy more brands. They're going to expand into new markets. They're going to buy out people who are the solo operator who bought themselves a job, who like doesn't really like what they do anymore, right? I think there's a huge positive trend in the industry, and I'd love to be part of it.
I'm going to be curious to see how like offshore labor gets involved in the industry as well. I mean, it's hard for a lot of these services, these home services business, but
we have 15 Filipinos that work for us. So they run our entire back office, all the accounting, all the bookkeeping, payroll. I mean, I have a guy right now for the painting business doing building referral lists. So he's for $1,200 a month. He is banging out all these calls a day, setting appointments with my team to go meet plumbers, roofers, property maintenance guys, whatever. I mean, in 2 weeks, he set 40 appointments for us for potential referral partners. Now, some of them, the people don't show up, whatever, but super cheap way for us to acquire referral partners through this, for $300 a week, basically.
Is there a franchise for offshore hiring?
There's a lot of guys who do it. It's super easy. Once you get it down, it's super easy. Like I hired that guy in 3 days, got him started, like got him an open phone account, like boom, boom, super, super easy. We already had the scripts written because the franchisor gave it to us. For training our onshore people, we just said, all right, we're gonna have this offshore guy do it.
Yeah, well, I can't tell you. I mean, I'm tweeting about it a lot now, and you see it. There's a lot of guys online like advertising. Support shepherds out there. John Matzner's new company, and so there's a lot out there. But it just feels like every day I talk to everybody's offshoring now. I mean, it's gotten so much easier, and just the labor pressure here is so high. So it makes sense. Well, this has been fantastic, Brian. If people want to reach out on the consulting side or just, in general, how would they do that?
Yeah, so if they're on Twitter at Brian Beers, that's where I'm the most active. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me there. And so, yeah, you can reach out. You can find my, I've got a podcast. I talk about franchising, simplifying business, like all this stuff. Connect me, shoot me a message, just say you heard it here. And I can get them connected into kind of our consulting coaching practice. Like I said, it's no cost really to start looking at these things. We provide a bunch of resources and that'd be great.
Okay, here's one last question. So my son, he's 15. He was about to do like Amazon drop shipping with his buddy. And I was like, that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. All right. So if you were like a young kid and maybe you can't open a franchise, I don't know, because you got to go to school, but you have the summers and part-time. What would you do? What was your top piece of advice for a kid like that?
I have the perfect brand. So it's called Frios, and it's a gourmet popsicle company.
I know him.
You know Cliff?
Yeah. I met Cliff a couple of times. I didn't know he would franchise like to that. But yeah, it's only during the summer, right? And at festivals and
Well, it's year round. It's year round business. So what's unique about it? Yeah. So picture this: a handmade popsicle that's caramel cheesecake, crumble caramel cheesecake that has real, like they take a cheesecake and they throw it into the mixture, or cotton candy that you can pull out real pieces of cotton candy. So really natural, handmade, 5 ingredients max, made in Alabama. So it's a modern ice cream truck. So super easy. You show up in this tie-dye van, you go to festivals, you go to, neighborhood events, you go to sporting events, you go to high school football games, you go to tailgating at the Eagles, and you probably have to sneak it in. And you sell these popsicles for $5 a pop, and they cost you $2 or whatever.
that's pretty low cost, right? Because it's just like the van.
It costs the franchise, it says 40 to 70. It's like 50-ish K, basically. And they just buy the product. It's a flat royalty. They don't even track sales because, so many things are sold in cash. And then you can build B2B. So like you can go to the local downtown DC hotels, country clubs, social clubs, and you can sell the product to them for $4 a popsicle. and then they can mark it up to $6 and they can sell it, or they can do corporate events. I helped somebody get into Chicago, and he used to be in tech actually, and he goes and he knows people at Discover, and Discover hosts this big party, and it's like and then they have these popsicles and champagne and like lots and lots of like fun stuff that these guys do to make it a year-round business.
That's an awesome recommendation. I love them. They also have pickle flavor popsicles.
They do have pickle flavored. Only in Pittsburgh and a couple specific markets does well with the pickles.
Yeah, he told me that they used to freeze pickle juice during the summer, and so it's like people resonate with it.
So anyway, somebody just bought Philly, and I just bought $200 worth of popsicles from them for my staff and my kids and stuff. But anyway, awesome business for the right people who want like a family friendly, bring smiles to people's faces, low cost, low commitment lifestyle business. I think it's awesome.
Love it. Well, thank you, Brian. We appreciate it, and talk to you soon.
See you, man. Thanks.
You've been listening to the Small Business Mentor podcast, brought to you by Alan Pentz. For more insights on how to navigate your business through its black holes, visit @apentz on X. Don't forget to search for Small Business Mentor in your podcast app to subscribe. Thank you for joining us, and here's to your next leap in business growth.